Someone needs to tell Charlotte Flair the truth, because if no one is, then she's going to continuously make kind of delusional statements. And I think we are in this place. Now, Charlotte Flair, she recently came out with a Players Tribune article, and it was a wonderful piece. I thought they absolutely crushed it with it. She talked about various topics: her feud with Ronda Rousey, the Four Horsewomen, her divorce from Andrade, her return from a torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus that left her sidelined for over a year. I mean, just crazy stuff in this article. And she obviously wrote it with some editorial guidelines. And one of the topics, well, got me thinking. And it got me thinking in a bigger way than usual, because Charlotte Flair touched on something that I think fans have been holding out hope for, but I also don't think WWE fans or pro wrestling fans in general are being very honest with themselves about. They're not being genuine. They're not thinking clearly. And I think you can throw Charlotte Flair into this mix after she made these comments. She remains optimistic about a possible Four Horsewomen reunion. On the February 11th, 2015, the Four Horsewomen, they would face off in their one and only fatal four-way match. It was NXT rival. At the event, Sasha Banks, now known as Mercedes Moné, would go over in that bout, and the NXT Women's Championship away from Charlotte Flair. In this Players Tribune article, Charlotte noted that she still believes that the Four Horsewomen Fatal 4-Way bout will still happen in the future. Now, keep in mind that Charlotte, Becky, and Bayley are still under contract from the WWE. Let's be real, they're pretty much WWE lifers at this point. The only catalyst is Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné. She is in AEW under a multi-year, big money contract. She ain't going anywhere time soon. And in this article, Charlotte said the Four Horsewomen. The thing about the Four Horsewomen is this: we never even did the match. Me versus Mercedes versus Becky versus Bayley on the main roster. Is still to this day probably the biggest money women's wrestling match that you could book. And I do think that it'll one day happen. But I also think the fact that it hasn't happened, and yet we're still so intertwined with each other's careers, it just speaks to the uniqueness of our impact and our connection. It speaks to the way that while they have always been cool stories to tell within the Horsewomen, the coolest story has been the one of the Four Horsewomen. She continued by discussing her relationship with other members of the group. She said, "We've definitely had our ups and downs over the years. I won't pretend we're best friends or that we've all even are friends at this moment. I won't pretend there's a Four Horsewomen group chat I'll send this article to when it publishes. I think about it that way. It does make me sad sometimes, but I also think it's part of life, especially at the highest of levels of professionalism, competition, and on a professional level. The respect between the four of us is absolute, and the bonds that we share are indestructible. There's not another person alive who knows what we've been through as a group or what it's taken for all of us to be active, to all be at the top of our games as women working in the business that's still learning how to treat women. I have a different, perfect chemistry with all of them. And I wrote about them individually. I'll be writing forever. So instead, I'll just say this one thing that means very much to me. And I'll always tie them together in my heart as a trio. I grew up in wrestling because of my dad. I got into wrestling because of my brother. But I fell in love with the wrestling business because of the Horsewomen. I fell in love with the wrestling because I fell in love with Becky, Bayley, and Mercedes as wrestlers, and nothing will ever change that. I guess there's a lot to unpack there. She kind of went a little long-winded, so if you lost me there, I apologize. Let's break this down. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the reason for this video. Charlotte. Do you really think we're going to get a Four Horsewomen match? I don't. I think it's going to be one of the what ifs type scenarios. What if we got Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch? What if we got the Four Horsewomen of WWE versus the Four Horsewomen of MMA? Those are two matches that we never got, nor will we ever get. I think we can throw this into the category. I've called out Becky, I've called out Bayley, called out Mercedes, and now I'm calling out Charlotte and stating y'all need to let this one go. It's going to be a what-if type scenario. It's going to be a situation in which it never happens, and I'll tell you why. You have Charlotte Flair, you have Bayley. They are all either 40 or about to press 40. You have Becky Lynch, who is already on a part-time schedule because she is really trying to dive deep into acting in her Hollywood career. So I see Becky not sticking around for too much longer. I think she's going to go into Hollywood. I think Bayley's going to retire within the next 2 years and become a producer / maybe a player's coach. And Charlotte, I think she's going to be around for quite some time. You have Mercedes Moné, who is under a multi-year deal with AEW, in which she signed just last year. So let's say she's got another 3 to 4 years on the deal, right? I could easily see her signing a 5-year deal, but let's say she has 3 years left. If Bayley is not going to be there in a full-time capacity, well, I can't really do that. And if Becky is not in the picture, which I don't think she will, I think Becky will be out of WWE within the next 2 years. Being in an acting world, how are you supposed to do a fatal 4-way match if you don't have all 4 of those competitors, right? So I don't see that happening. Do I think that Mercedes Moné will return to WWE one day? Yeah, I do. Will it be to wrestle again? Probably. But will it be as a full-time athlete, a full-time performer? Probably not. And that's the dilemma that Mercedes Moné fans and WWE, well, they got to deal with. So I don't think that it is a lock that WWE is going to be able to book a fatal 4-way, 4 horsewomen of WWE type match. I just don't see us getting Charlotte Flair and Becky and Bayley and Mercedes Moné and Charlotte. I just don't see all of them coming together for one big epic clash. Sorry. Now look, does that mean that I hope that I'm right? No. I hope that I'm wrong. I would love to see the match. I actually agree with Charlotte saying that it's the biggest money match that WWE can produce. You could literally build this matchup for 6 months because you could have Charlotte wrestle Becky and Bayley versus Mercedes in a tag team match, and then you can intertwine all of those singles matches, right? You could do a 8-woman match. You can do a trios match. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with them, right? They can be in an alliance. One can turn heel, 3 be baby faces, whatever. There's so many different layers and different ways and different options and different variables that you could deal with. But I'm a little hesitant to think that that's actually going to go through. I just don't see it. Could be wrong. Let me know down in the comments here below. What do you guys think? Is this going to be a match that happens? Is WWE actually going to be able to do it? Let me know down in the comments here below.